let's talk Dolphins. Perhaps not coincidentally, I'd say probably the second most interesting team to talk about here. A lot of this stuff we've gone over on our quarterback show, on our wide receiver show that we did together, tight end, stuff like that. So some of this is going to be stuff you've heard us say before. But this is now in the context of the entire team working in the running game and all that stuff. Give me the breakdown on the Dolphins.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, I'll reference a lot of that news and notes that feed into these projections, but it is good still to have your thoughts on what you think you're going to do. And then when you actually go and look at a ton of research, I was just at the coffee shop for 3 hours doing one division. I really do look at all the big pies and then laser it into trends and what has the coach done in the past with similar players. So it does take a while, but this is really just confirming a lot of what we do. So in terms of the team level, as you can see there for the Dolphins, I was surprised at how few plays they actually end up running. You think they're fast paced and they're just constantly pushing. And they were in terms of the amount of how quickly they ran, but they just didn't run that many plays because they scored so frequently and such big plays as well. So ultimately they ran the 27th total plays last year, but finished 11th in scoring, which just tells you how high powered and how fast they scored. It didn't take often. They would have quick drives and pound them off real quick with big play after big play. And a lot of those were short plays that turned into big plays because of how greatly designed this offense is under McDaniel. So last year was 602 pass attempts, 406 rush attempts. I projected something somewhat similar. I could see an uptick in some total plays here just because year two of the system, you hear all the players already raving about how, Tyreek Hill calling it night and day with how well he thinks he's going to produce. Well, he just put up, 1,700 yards and 119 catches. So if it's night and day for him, look out. Same with Jaylen Waddle saying, coming in and not having to learn all the verbiage, but now we're just enhancing everything. McDaniels himself said the way faster Tua is processing things. So to me, I wouldn't be shocked at all if we get about 50, 60 total more plays from this offense. And for this offense, 50 to 60 total more plays is actually a really, really big deal considering how quickly they score so often. So that's my overall team level. I still think it'll be about 60% pass, 40% run, even if they do make a move and get Dalvin Cook. So that's one of the things that could shake this up. I don't think the overall output of this offense would change. I still think it's a very pass happy. Let's get the playmakers the ball quick and let's see what happens. So that's kind of the team level I expect. In terms of how I expect that pretty decent healthy pie of Ariel get kind of passed around. This is an easy one. That's why we could probably spend less time on them. It's Tyreek Hill, it's Jaylen Waddle, and there really is not much else behind them. Last year, Tyreek Hill saw 32%. I have him for 30% right now, 183 targets, 126 catches. I mean, this guy is so ridiculous, Tyreek Hill, that he ultimately averaged over 14 yards per reception, yet still caught over 70% of his balls. Like that's just insane efficiency from Tyreek Hill. So I have him right in line with what he did last year, a little bit of a bump up, given that he's playing faster in this offense, more touchdowns. He only scored 7 last year. I could definitely see him hitting 11, even 15 or so. He did set a goal for 2,000 receiving yards, and that could be that. I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it's somebody like Tyreek Hill that can really rip 90 yards in the blink of an eye. Wouldn't shock me at all how well designed he is in this offense, but I have him right now for 1,751 and 11 touchdowns on 126 catches. Either way, that's going to be an alpha worth your top 5 overall pick type of season. 24% going to Waddle. This would be a pretty big jump in targets last year. And I like to kind of scroll down and show you guys this. So this is one thing I found insane about Jaylen Waddle's production. So he goes, I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see this a little clearer. He goes as a rookie, 140 targets, paced the team, 104 catches, looking great. Only 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns on that, 9.78 yards per reception, which seemed weird. Waddle's a speedster. Why is he kind of playing this Jarvis Landry dink and dunk role? Strange. Well, his yards per reception double nearly 18 yards per reception last year. So even on 30 fewer targets, 116 on 30 fewer catches, 75 versus 104, he ends up having over 300 yards, adding 2 more touchdowns, outscoring his fantasy points big time. I could now see maybe a perfect, and this is where the ceiling would be, a perfect meeting in the middle where we get that like 140-ish targets, but he maintains pretty close to that efficiency this year. And that's kind of what I've statted it out at, not like, the perfect meeting of the worlds, but keeping, 15 yards per catch instead of 18, catching 96 balls instead of 104, and turning that into 14, 50, and 9. very, very reasonable expectation for Jaylen Waddle. I also have both of them getting some production in the run game as well, given how creative this scheme is. So that would make both these guys viable wide receiver ones. Tyreek a top 5 potential pick. Waddle more so, mid round 2, late round 2. But still, even though he's a number 2 on his own team, a worthy number 1 for your fantasy team. And then after that, as you can see, and this is true with how they projected things last year, nobody else last year saw more than 9% target share behind these guys. Trent Sherfield was next up with 8.4% target share last year. So I just kind of tossed around, it's 8, 6, 2. The only one, and you'll see 10% target share here. Who's getting that? Well, that's Devon Achane. And this is the running game, which again could get shaken up. But as a receiver, I do expect Devon Achane, whether we have Dalvin Cook join or not. They've talked early OTAs how he's been a monster underneath and benefiting from the speed around him, that he's just getting such open grass. And once he catches it, how quickly he turns out. He's small. He definitely plays real tough and strong in college. We'll see if that does translate to the NFL level. I love the player, though. I think, despite being tiny, I thought he ran so hard and so great vision. He's a great receiver as well. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if he kind of becomes the de facto number 3. No more Gesicki here, who again 8.5% target share last year was nothing, but they have nothing at tight end. We can just kind of completely skip that. You look 200. I had Darren Smythe, 26 catches, whatever. We don't need to worry about that. So I do think a lot of that Gesicki volume, which wasn't much, but I think a lot of that's going to funnel into that running back position with 440 yards for receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns for Achane, in addition to 462 and 3. That makes him the most interesting running back here by far, considering I have right around 1,000 total yards, 7 touchdowns, and 44 catches. That makes him the most interesting. We know how speed obsessed Mike McDaniels is, how he likes to get his guys the ball in space and let them do their thing. I think Achane is the perfect weapon there. Other than that, Wilson and Mostert, they averaged around 10 points per game last year, a near even split throughout the season. So I have them just going 567 and 5. I think Wilson could be the goal line hammer, but they still love to just throw it when they get in close. Mostert might break a long touchdown or 2. But I don't know that either of these guys are that exciting right now anyways. And then if you mix in the risk that Dalvin Cook could get added, we get even trickier there. But as you can see here, wrapping up with Tua, just all that volume going to Tyreek Hill, and Jaylen Waddle should mean good things. He finished last year 25 touchdowns, nearly 4K yards, and missed 5 games. So this is projecting a fully healthy season. That's one part. And I know that's probably what the bone you'll pick with me, Truth, here. When I project these, I do typically try to factor in just what happens if they play a full season. And that is a big risk.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But it's so tough to be like, all right, he's going to play 11 games and we'll give 4 games to Skylar Thompson. This is just kind of the rosy picture. Like if Tua does play and he's got a new concussion-based helmet and he's beefed up a little bit, I have a little more faith that he makes it through. But yeah, of course we've seen him take some horrible hits, and no one would be shocked if he takes a huge hit at the beginning of the year and is done. So that's the risk with all these weapons here. They do operate pretty good. I think Mike White does lessen that risk as well as the backup quarterback. Yeah, we've seen him get it done with the Jets plenty. So I think even Tyreek Hill, Waddle, they'll be fine if Mike White is ultimately inserted. But I think Tua, this is what I could see. Nearly 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns or so if he stays healthy. With these weapons and in this offense, especially in year 2, I really think that's very possible as well. So yeah, there's my long-winded Dolphins and all the players you need to know. What's some what bones you have to pick, or anybody you want me to dive into a little more?
I mean, you already called me on what was going to be my obvious one, but I think that you have to project it the way that you're projecting it. I don't, you can't, I think the guy's probably going to get hurt, and I hope I'm wrong, but you can't predict when that will happen or how severe it will be. You can't be like, yes. I mean, it's not a crystal ball thing. If you were going to be like, I'm going to project him for 7 games because I think he's going to get hurt in week 8 or something like that. Well, I mean, it's just as likely to happen any week. So you have to project, you have to make your predictions based on the fact, okay, this is assuming this guy can play all these games.
Right.
And then you have to take that with a grain of salt and decide what's your risk reward, because there's way more risk with someone like him than really just about anybody else. So you have to factor that in, and you have to decide how valuable that upside is. I think it's interesting talking about the backs. It's interesting. I really like Mostert and I really like Wilson, but they're both so unsexy right now. They're solid. They're solid. I'm not hating on them, but they're solid. They're 10-point a game guys. decent guy to have on your team, pretty reliable. And yeah, as far as Hill and Waddle, I think your predictions are actually, man, I could see Hill scoring more than 11 touchdowns. I know he had less than that last year. And I actually think your bump for Waddle, assuming health for Tua and stuff, is appropriate.
Awesome. I'm glad you like that. Yeah, this is one thing I love about Mike McDaniels too. Like Wilson and Mostert, they're fine players, but he recognizes I have 2 sports cars in Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, and he just peppers them. I don't know why more coordinators don't just get the ball into their best hand, the hands of their best players more often. I love that McDaniels does that, and it makes them very easy to project, in my opinion. So with that jump from Tua, like that, I predicted it kind of like Tyreek Hill stays mostly the same and adds some touchdowns, and Waddle picks up the slack. But as we were saying, maybe Waddle stays the same and is right around 1,100 yards, and Tyreek just goes for 2K. That totally could be an option here for sure. But that's just what I love, like how clear it's going to be. The ball is going to go to Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle on about 60% of the plays, and then we'll see what else kind of happens behind them. With Devon Achane being the only running back as of right now, I really am targeted. And Campanelli, I know you said he's in the audience. He's probably shitting all over me. Jeff Wilson, you had his body pillow. Like I've been on the record. I love Jeff Wilson. I've always been a big fan. And when he got traded to Miami, he was looking like the next stud there. He had 18 and 22 points the first. He was looking really good, but then Mostert came back and they started nibbling at each other. And Dalvin Cook's lingering and rumored to be interested here. So I'm just avoiding the backfield. Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and I do like Tua shares too. I do have some Tua, especially if I get one of those 2 early as well.
I will close the Dolphins thing by saying it always makes me a little bit like it gets me excited initially, but then it makes me pretty nervous when somebody's like making like a prediction. I'm going to get 2,000 yards this year. I'm going to do so and so. I mean, for some reason, I have it burned into my memory. I feel like one year Warren Sapp just declared that he was going to break the sack record. And then I feel like he got like 3 sacks or something.
Yeah, it just was complete trash.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like sometimes you look at that and you're like, ooh, man, he's really going to whip it out this year and do it. And then sometimes you're just like, man, don't do that. Just go play.
Yeah, to me, like, Hill's the type of guy that like I'm okay with him doing it. And McDaniel's the type of coach that I could see, like, especially if Hill starts fast, be like, yeah, we're going to go get you this record. Let's go, boys. And I'm sure you've seen that picture. It's like Mike McDaniel's coaches, like he's like the kid that got left the house by his parents for the weekend because he just is so loose and just lets it rip. Like he's a player friendly guy. I definitely take it with a grain of salt in 99% of circumstances. But in this case, I love that he's shooting for the record. And I could see his coach just feeding right into that narrative and peppering him.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he's fun to watch either way. So I don't know.
Yeah. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.